Yu Jung-hyuk entered the industrial complex by using covert maneuver and stealth shroud. You have entered the new main scenario area. The Demon World's industrial complex. He had visited the Demon World in the second regression, but it was the first time he came in this period of time. He looked around slowly and saw the citizens wandering the area. Their faces showed that they abandoned the scenario and felt despair at the world. It was one of the reasons Yu Jung-hyuk rarely formed bonds. He didn't want to share that despair. This was the most poisonous emotion for a regressor. It's quieter than I thought. I thought it would be a mess, thanks to Kim Dokja. He looked around, and there wasn't anyone who seemed to be Kim Dokja. He would be easily seen with his unusual behavior. Yu Jung-hyuk wondered if he really was alive. How annoying. It's too big. The constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire is hoping you won't make any unnecessary sacrifices. He turned his head to see the Uriel doll puffing up her cheeks. Yu Jung-hyuk gave a small sigh and focused his eyesight as he looked around. He came here with the symbolic body of an archangel, so his actions were limited. I can grab a citizen and ask. As he focused his senses, he felt dark energy hiding among the citizens. It was a characteristic of demons. If it was a demon, then the archangel couldn't say anything. They must have a lot of information. Of course, a demon was strong. However, Yu Jung-hyuk was a transcendent. He rose to this realm without borrowing the power of his sponsor. There were few presences that could threaten Yu Jung-hyuk unless they were equal to a constellation. That's a good one. Yu Jung-hyuk moved through the shadows like flowing water and quickly spotted his desired target. Yu Jung-hyuk activated a skill before the startled demon Earl could scream. The exclusive skill Soundwave Blocking level 10 is activated. The demon Earl's neck was grabbed. Yu Jung-hyuk opened his mouth. If you answer my questions carefully from now on, I will spare you. Of course, he didn't mean to spare the demon, but he still said so. It was because he knew from experience that this was more effective. The confused demon Earl shouted, Who are you? Such a thing! A brutal assault was poured towards the demon Earl, and his body became ragged in a second. The demon Earl coughed up black blood and spat it out all types of curses. Then he changed his tune in less than 5 minutes. Ask anything you want. Then Yu Jung-hyuk opened his mouth. Kim Dokja. Yu Jung-hyuk was talking when he suddenly remembered something. Kim Dokja obviously wouldn't mention his own name here. Yu Jung-hyuk changed the question. Where is Yu Jung-hyuk? Someone has made a Yu Jung-hyuk declaration. Someone has made a Yu Jung-hyuk declaration. Numerous citizens shouted the name Yu Jung-hyuk. It seemed as if the entire industrial complex had become Yu Jung-hyuk. As I came to my senses, I noticed the countless Yu Jung-hyuk advancing towards the factory. I am Yu Jung-hyuk. I'm the real Yu Jung-hyuk. Of course, I moved between them and raised a hand. Yu Jung-hyuk, wow! Yu Jung-hyuk should have seen this sight. I wondered what he would look like if he was here. The name of revolutionary Yu Jung-hyuk is being widely spread in the 73rd Demon Realm. The Star Stream was a world of stories. So many citizens here were calling out Yu Jung-hyuk's name, so he must have acquired a considerable degree of stories. I don't know what these jerks were doing, but he got to eat well. Then a strange message was heard. Your reputation is rising. Huh? The reputation Kim Dokja is rapidly increasing in the 73rd Demon Realm. The messages continued to be heard. What was this situation? I never said my name. These damn guys. On the other hand, Duke Sistwitz was baffled by the surging tide of people. The last executioner has died. Duke Sistwitz's ruler effect is disabled. Then Jang Hyung finally completed his mission. All executioners in the industrial complex have died. Everyone in the industrial complex has gained the execution right for the ruler. From now on, the Night of Revolution will begin. Night of Revolution. The citizens were excited as they heard this message for the first time in their lives. The execution rights for the Duke. They had the power to directly punish the ruler. Wah! Go! Just like waves hitting hard reefs, the citizens flocked towards the factory. The citizens were bloody, and countless citizens were trampled on by the factory, but this caused the citizens' will to burn even brighter. Smash it! The citizens were thinking that they just needed to smash this big pile of metal. They just needed to get beyond this iron barrier, and they could tear apart the Duke. However, the citizens didn't know. This was actually the greatest hurdle of this revolution. The giant grinder started to spin, and the citizens were sliced apart in the blink of an eye. Back off! In the revolutionary scenario, the night of revolution was the time when the Duke was the weakest. It was because every citizen in the industrial zone gained the power to kill the Duke. Nevertheless, there were conditions. The Duke needed to come out of the factory. Shit, it's too hard. The factory didn't break down, no matter how hard it was smashed. The Duke laughed. Foolish things. At one time, he was also a revolutionary. Thus, he never thought about this day. Night of Revolution was the most dangerous time for a Duke. Still, the Duke was absolutely safe, as long as he didn't leave the factory. There is nothing that can destroy this factory. Thus, the Duke made his factory in the hardest form in the world. It was built on the basis of the giant soldier in the underworld. It was impossible for this fearsome story weapon to be broken with the power of the citizens. The Duke showed no mercy in his movement. Every time the grinder moved, the citizens' bodies were torn to pieces. Indirect messages poured down from the sky like rain. The constellation Nouveau Richard Snakeboss is drunk from the battlefield of blood. The constellation Nail-Eating Rat is excited about the human slaughter. The coin messages poured as the ranks of the citizens were broken. The revolution was crumbling before the solid outer wall that couldn't be broken. Eileen, is everything ready? The temporary measures are over, but the battle... It's fine. I just need to move once. I responded roughly and stood up. This was probably the limit of what I was capable of with the story repair. Where are you hiding? Recite that smug revolutionary declaration again. I listened to the Duke's voice and went forward. I held firmly to unbroken faith and walked step by step. Sparks appeared around the outer shell of the factory thanks to the excessive probability consumption. The factory was obviously a force outside of the scenario. It was the constellations supporting this unfair scenario. Kim Dokja thought, if the Duke is crushing the people with the power from outside of the scenario, I can do the same thing. BU. The hiding BU emerged with a bah! Extend the bandwidth of the channel to the underworld. It might be difficult for the present BU, but if I didn't do this, I wouldn't be able to use this method. Can you do it? BU seemed tired but nodded. Bah! This was really the last resort. I remembered the memories of my second trip to the underworld. This is the key to making a giant soldier. Understood? It was like this. Hey, I really appreciate it. Well, if you really appreciate it, place my name in the maker column. I hadn't used it until now because this story weapon consumed a huge amount of probability. A weapon that could cause a probability storm simply by summoning it. Therefore, this weapon was limited by probability unless it was a scenario of Gigantomachia. It was impossible for me to summon it, even if I had the strongest sword. Prisoner of the Golden Headband. The story was a bit different, but if I wasn't alone? The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is looking at you. Please, help me. Of course, it was only a summoning, even with the great sage of the Equal of Heaven's help. Even so, I could win just by summoning it. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband says it's against the fairness of the scenario. I want to change the scenario. I stopped talking and glanced at the factory where sparks were flying. They might have received a buff due to the execution rites, but the citizens weren't able to lay one hand on the Duke. If this continued, the population of the industrial complex would be wiped up in the next few minutes. Besides, hasn't it stopped being fair a long time ago? The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is annoyed. Damn, I thought we were a bit closer. Originally, the Great Sage, the Equal of Heaven, was the type that didn't easily get involved in such matters. Maybe it was a miracle that he was even listening to me. Are you really going to leave these guys alone? They're the ones who hijacked the probability first. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is rejoicing in the mess. There are no Dokkaebis here to deter them. The Great Sage, the Equal of Heaven, was silent. Thinking about it, he didn't lend me probability even during the King of a Kingless World scenario. In the end, I committed a taboo. Did you receive a strange message a while ago? The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is asking about what you mean. I don't know the details, but it's about the missing hair. A thunderous aura was felt from the sky. It was the Great Sage, the Equal of Heaven's anger. I shouted in reply to the anger. That's right. They are the ones who sent it. The constellation Nouveau Richer Snake Boss is staring at you with astonishment. The constellation Nail-Eating Rat is biting his nails at the unexpected situation. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is furious. At this moment, the hair of the Great Sage, the Equal of Heaven that I left in my pocket, floated into the air. I replied with a sigh. I will use it well. I grasped the hair and felt the power of a condensed story. There was inherent energy in the hair. It was hard for me to measure the strength of the Great Sage, the Equal of Heaven. The first thing that mattered here... I hesitated for a moment before watching the sky and chanting the starting words. Now, the sword designed to cut a sleeping giant. The moment I started chanting the first words, the color of the sky began to change. The clouds showed signs of abnormality and a new ominous aura filled the sky. The constellations of the demon world have noticed your presence. Yes, I was caught. It would be strange if I wasn't noticed, but it couldn't be helped. I hoped that Persephone and Hades would take care of me. Now, descend here. The discolored sky started to split in half. In the gap, two huge eyes were staring at me. The giant soldier Pluto has responded to your call. The sparks of a formidable probability shook my body. I jerked like an electric eel and red blood flowed from my eyes. I wanted to scream, but it was a pain that didn't even allow me to scream. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is sharing your probability. My already tattered body wasn't immediately destroyed because the Great Sage, the Equal of Heaven, was bearing some of the price. The demon kings of the demon world are stunned by the surprise probability storm. A few constellations are surprised by the abnormalities in the scenario. There was another huge shadow covering the sky. Some citizens noticed and stared at the sky. Then their eyes slowly widened. Disaster. The Duke discovered it late and also looked up. A black gas emerged from the gap in the cracked sky. The shell boasted an eerie luster like a black dragon's scales. The Duke saw its appearance and exclaimed with shock, This! How? Shock filled his face. I heard it was incomplete. It was incomplete at one time. To be exact, it was until I visited the underworld. The secret weapon of the underground king, giant soldier Pluto. Finally, a huge armored weapon with a height of 30 meters fell from the sky.